Hello, and that countdown timer is lying to us all. Hello, and welcome to ohmTown. ohmTown is run by Mayor Watt. I am Mayor Watt. That's the website right there. I host a news show here on Twitch, and then it gets copied over to YouTube and to the ohmTown podcast. And I'm going to be referring to this from now on as the ohmTown News or Daily News Show. Probably going to stick to the Daily News Show. So what ohmTown is a news aggregation site, and it throws in what amounts to about 100, actually 200 news sources into 6 categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. Within those are going to be 50 additional shows, and I'm looking for hosts and co-hosts. But there's an example of it. So within create, there's Aerith, Bead Baby, Breaking Pros, Constructagon, Jewel Crafting, Reality Hacker, Tabletop Nights, and Warcrafters, and it goes on across the board here. You can go and check it out by visiting ohmTown.com. Every time you click on the logo for ohmTown, that little name over there, it'll refresh and update what is getting aggregated from all of these news sources that I have found veracity in. If it's honest and truthful and not necessarily pure opinion, I evaluate it and then include it in my aggregator. And what happens is I take a selection of the news throughout the day, about 20 links actually. I don't read the material. I want my honest reaction and your honest reaction. If you are witnessing this both in my chat or on YouTube, you'll see it. The podcast, obviously, it's just audio, but I would like you to come and visit me every day, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Over on Twitch. So you can go to twitch.tv/ohmTown. Obviously, you can go to ohmTown.com as well, and that'll allow you to come over to the Twitch channel, and you can always see the more archived versions of the streams over on YouTube because I can't store it long term on Twitch. I only have 14 days. So I've only been doing this for about 45 days and just kind of cruising along. So I hope you enjoy the show. I'm not really loud and wild and crazy, and my reactions are not I don't know. They're not just out there, you know. I'm kind of chill about these things, and I want to understand the context of them, why things are the way they are. I reference who it is that provides the articles, and I give credit where credit is due. And this is how it works. The very first link that I'm going to post into chat is the record 7% in U.S. now identify as LGBT. And this is a Gallup poll. And so what my aggregator does is it reaches out and grabs that headline, a little bit of the article itself, not the whole thing. I encourage you to click the link on ohmTown and go over to visit the source. When you visit the source, you'll see where it comes from and who wrote it. It's from The Hill. Rachel Scully is the author. There's a video playing, but I'm going to pause it. And it says the percentage of U.S. adults who identify themselves as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or other sexuality other than heterosexual has increased to a new high of 7.1%. And it's almost as if it shouldn't matter what your orientation is. My goodness. It shouldn't matter who you love. We are all human beings. And I can't really get into this article. I don't want to read it all on the news, but I'm going to give you my context, my perception. And if you find yourself in like mind, or even you could be diametrically opposed, ask me the question in chat, talk with me. Let's see if we can see each other's context, each other's perspective. And if we can do it with a level head and understanding that each of us have a different perspective, we could, share a beer. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And I'm okay with that. But it says here, approximately 1 in 5 Generation Z Americans born between 1997 and 2003 now identify as LGBT, almost double the number of millennials. And I can almost read into this that as acceptance, public acceptance of the LGBT aura, right? Like there are people out there that are just so against LGBT because they just don't see the other people as human beings. As that falls away and more people accept people for who they are, you're going to get more people identifying publicly. Why? Because these kind of things are constructed by humans to label humans for whatever intent. Understanding is one thing. Marginalization is another thing. So this was a poll that was conducted through 2021 and surveyed 12,416 U.S. adults, and it has a margin of error of 1%. So in the grand scheme of things, it's a relatively small number of adults, but it's still significant. What do you think? Do you think it should matter? We all have our own different, unique perspectives on life. The fact that one person is LGBT or not isn't going to change my perception. If you're a horrible person, right? If you lie, cheat, steal, harm people, yeah, that's what matters. This next article is over on Marvel. That's the channel that it will be known as when we find another host or co-host to do an hour show each week. Study finds married couples now less likely to uproot wives' careers in favor of husbands. The little snippet that my aggregator grabs says the longstanding expectation that a husband is the sole breadwinner of a household has shifted dramatically during the last few decades, with married couples enjoying a more egalitarian flexibility in their roles. So let's click this link and see if there's a little bit more there. John Nickham from University of Kansas wrote the article for phys.org. So it says a new study reveals that American couples are now less likely to uproot wives' careers in favor of husbands' careers than ever before. Yeah, there might be some more in this, but now more than ever, both members of a relationship are working and finding it fulfilling. And there may be a time where one person makes a choice to be a stay-at-home parent, whatever it might be, right? I made that choice. I was a stay-at-home dad because, my wife wanted to pursue her career, and because I was a consultant at the time, it was easy for me to uproot everything and move on. And so we did. Not everybody can do that, right? But now the cost of living for places is just wildly high. You can't easily live in San Francisco without making 6 digits. Or if you do, you're living far away from Silicon Valley, at least. So it says here, the study estimates the decline in migration probability among dual earner couples relative to male sole breadwinner couples accounts for nearly 1/3 of the total migration decline among married couples between the 1990s and 2010s. So the research was prompted by Ericsson's own personal experiences. Interesting. Oh, see, it says here, I was a tide mover several times before I started grad school. I would tell people that I moved to Delaware, then Seattle, then back to Kansas City for my wife's job. When I would tell them about that, they would say, "Oh, wow, you're such a nice husband." Well, I did the same thing. Not that many times, but from coast to coast. And it's called being a partner in a relationship. And there's give and take. And sometimes you just can't stop one person from having to pursue their career. I guess I did it before it was cool, right? 20 years ago. This next article is in the Mobile Channel. And it says business updates. Half of cars arriving at dealers are already sold, AutoNation says. The automotive retailer said tight demand and limited supply driven by shortages in computer chips is likely to continue well into the year. I can tell you this from experience that, what the heck? They did this again? Is this really what's going on? Okay, hold on. I need to find where the article is in this. Is it even on here? Wow. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it's halfway down the page. New York Times, written by Neil Baudet. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anyway, oh, that's interesting. It's in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. Anyway, so that's the East Coast. It's by me. And so I can tell you from experience that yes, cars that are coming into dealerships are already sold, and the ones that are on the lot have a premium price tag. Wildly raised prices at times. And it remains a chip shortage, manufacturing shortage. There are ships that are containing all of the parts, but it can't be built. There are production systems in place, but nobody is helming that. So we're not getting the chips. Again, in previous episodes, I've spoken about having to, what I refer to as repatriasource. I know it's an ugly big name that has to do with bringing stuff back to, the land of the free. But what I'm implying is it's repatriating, bringing back production that has been shifted overseas because it is cheaper. It has lower monitoring by the governments. There's all kinds of other things that take place in the United States that raise the cost. So hopefully new manufacturing methods, new automation systems, etc., lower the cost, make it feasible to bring back production so that in times like this, we don't have to worry about the fact that there aren't low cost or no cost, literally no cost, human capital being exploited in foreign countries. I got into a discussion about this and I was told, we have sent so much production elsewhere, and because of the consumption, it's brought people out of poverty, millions of people in other countries out of poverty. And I say, well, that's wonderful. That really is wonderful. But it's not sustainable unless you continue what I would refer to as exploitation of people, because you can bounce around the idea, well, it's a different cost of living, but it's really a matter of you've got a better deal over there because there are so many oversight checks from environmental controls to human capital controls to like healthcare, and there's just so much more that it raises the cost of living within the United States to the point where it makes sense to go somewhere else, manufacture it, stick it on a boat, and wait for it for months to come back to the United States. So why does that make economic sense? It's because of the machinations involved in global finance and politics. It isn't as simple as, well, they've got a different cost of living. And that's that part of the whole associative thinking. There's a lot of socioeconomic, socio-political dynamics at play, and a lot of people just make the assumption, well, it's just it doesn't cost so much over there. Well, we'd all be equal if everybody was treated equal and all of the machinations were equal. Obviously, that's just theory craft and discussion and more academic than reality, but you want to be the change you want to see in the world, right? So the next article is in the Word and Tech channel. Listen to an AI voice actor try and flirt with you. Sonantix demo pairs an artificially intelligent generated voice with a real human actor. The quality of AI generated voices has improved rapidly in recent years, but there are still some aspects of human speech that escape synthetic imitation. So I will probably, let's see, I'm going to click the link. And this person may or may not exist. This article is over at The Verge, and it's written by James Vincent. There is actually a website called This Person Does Not Exist, and it's computer generated people. And I think it's really interesting because you can also do basically what this is doing with an artificially generated voice, and you can make a fake person, which is something that I've spoken about previously. Fake actors, basically doing everything that formerly real actors were doing, except that they are no cost and not real, so people may not really attach to it. So if you can't make a connection, then is the acting really real? And we end up talking about Westworld for some reason. If you can't tell the difference, does it matter? So it says the quality of AI generated voices have improved rapidly in recent years. The AI voice startup Sonantix says it made a minor breakthrough in its development of audio deepfakes, creating a synthetic voice that can express subtleties like teasing and flirtation. So I'm going to click this link, and hopefully I don't get flagged, but we'll see. It's really quiet, isn't it?
Something we're all looking for. I want to talk about love. I get it. It's kind of awkward. How do you connect with another person? Finding that common wavelength? And
So Niantic CEO Zena Qureshi
connection that
describes the company's software as Photoshop for voice.
what could I do to make you fall in love with me? Would you need to feel my breath against your cheek? The soft touch of my fingertips?
Okay, we're going to pause that right there. So obviously this is kind of a mashup. Once they get the person and the voice acting tied together, then you can really talk to me. But a synthetic voice that sounds that realistic is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And make no bones about it, even the music that they chose in this actually builds the atmosphere to cause a connection between you and the actress or actor, or I should say actor. It doesn't matter the gender of the person. So this person here was basically just doing microtells, flirting and whatnot, but the voice is what was synthetic. And tied with the music and the other atmospherics, yeah, you can see that somebody might be able to connect, bond, feel an emotion. But it's our worldview. It's our perspective. It isn't necessarily just this snapshot. This is a silo of emotion. You have to have something more to connect. Give it a little more perspective. Someone, and you'll hear me talk about sociopathy quite a bit, probably in my news, because it's a big influencer on society. But if there is a person that just doesn't have a broad emotional range, they may never connect with this, regardless of how photoshopped the voice is. But I think that it's amazing, and puts Vocaloid to shame, but Vocaloid has a different purpose. So go over to The Verge and check it out. I think it's a really neat find that James Vincent wrote about, and go show James Vincent and The Verge some love. That would be great. I don't have a connection with them other than the fact that my aggregator grabbed a little snippet of a headline from the website. The next article is in The Word and Tech. Snapchat will start letting you change your username later this month. The article says Snapchat will users change their usernames with an update arriving globally later this month, the company announced. It means you'll be able to leave behind the name you used originally without having to create an entirely new account. And it says the new feature will be available for both iOS and Android. Well, that's interesting. I'm curious about the rest of it, though. So, John Porter over at The Verge, another one. You can change your name, but not your account. That's similar to, I think, what Twitter does. You can change your visual presence. Like, that's the name, but not the account itself. So you'll always, like, ohmTown will always be at ohmTown on Twitter, but I can change what it says is the public facing name. Yeah, I think it's going to end up being basically like Twitter. But I don't use Snapchat. I don't know anybody that uses Snapchat, and it's not like we have conversations about Snapchat. So it is what it is. But I thought that it would be interesting to let viewers know that you can now, or you will be able later this month, to change your Snapchat name. The next article is in the Mobile Channel, and this is risk of soil degradation and I knew I was going to mess up this word, desertification. So that's the turning into desert. in Europe's Mediterranean may be more serious than realized. So the article starts out with Europe's Mediterranean countries produce a significant portion of the world's wines, olives, nuts, and tomatoes, but research shows that the region's farms and orchards are the most susceptible in Europe to oil degradation and desertification. There we go. And not dessert as in that's what you eat, dessert. It's basically the soil is being destroyed and grass is being washed away. And then once all of that is gone, you end up with nothing but dirt and maybe some wash runoff kind of thing. This is from the KTH Royal Institute of Technology and is published in phys.org. And the problem here is that it's really tough to recover from that. There are instances across the continent of Africa where they are planting millions upon millions of trees to try and stop the encroachment of the desert. And good luck. There's a lot of discussion about it. And in some places, they don't really appreciate what's going on because it's being done in somebody else's land. But people are doing it. And it says here, in an analysis of agricultural research and data from the dozen European countries that line the Mediterranean coast, researchers from KTH Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden, Stockholm University, and the Navarino Environmental Observatory in Greece found that the Mediterranean region has the overall highest soil erosion rates within Europe, the lowest levels of soil organic matter, and severe salinization problems. So what's ending up apparently is the runoff is going to be pushing everything into the Mediterranean or elsewhere. Odds on it is the Mediterranean. And those erosion rates are taking all of the organic matter with it. And if you have salt water or salt deposits in the area, then you increase, because all that organic matter is being washed away. All you have left really is the salinization, the salt. And salt is in abundance. It will kill the soil. Nothing will grow there in salt. That's just how it works. If you ever want to get rid of somebody's lawn, you salt their lawn and it's gone forever until they dig up all of that topsoil and replace it. Not that I'm encouraging you to do that. Please don't do that. The fact that I have to say that frightens me. So the next article is new Windows 11 Task Manager lets you put greedy programs in eco jail. When I saw that headline, I was like, oh, wow, I got to talk about this. So I've chosen not to noodle around with Windows 11, even in my field. I've decided that I'm not going to mess around with Windows 11 yet. It's kind of like buying the first edition of anything, first version of something, right? You don't really want to buy the first version of something. I do it for certain things, but in this particular case, I want to see what shakes out from this. And I use Windows, I use Linux, I use Apple, I use Android. I've said this before in previous episodes. I am platform agnostic. I'll remote into something. It doesn't matter. I have all kinds of stuff. But anyway, the idea of being able to put greedy programs in eco jail. Let's see what it says here. Let's start with Task Manager's new threads, which come as Microsoft appears to be gradually giving Windows 11's age-old apps the treatment they really should have at launch. Windows 11 really was only skin deep at first. Okay, so where does it say anything? I'm going to click the link and take us over to the source. So Jacob Ridley over at PC Gamer is the author of this. And Microsoft is going to politely tell you off if you leave your screen and sleep settings on never. Yeah, but I believe that it's given notice before of things that are not consuming a lot and tagging things that do take up a lot of resources. I thought it was doing that in Windows 10. But in my field, I don't really pay much attention to that kind of stuff. So then there's the new edition of efficiency mode, which comes as a follow-up on the wider eco-friendly push with Microsoft's latest OS. Windows 11's Task Manager will now offer the ability to turn on efficiency mode for specific program processes, which will limit the resources available to it. Wonderful. Awesome. That's just one more arrow in my quiver to monitoring system performance. And if I can disable system hungry or resource hungry programs, then it's a win. So go over to PC Gamer and you can read the rest of this article and then try it out. Download Windows 11, noodle around with it, see if you like it, come back and talk to me about it. So the next article is, hell yeah, drag and drop into taskbar is finally in Windows 11. If you got used to dragging and dropping files in your taskbar on Windows 10 in order to open an associated app, you might have been a little bit peeved when the function was altogether missing from Windows 11. Well, apparently it is back. And the link, or I should say the article, is written by Jacob Ridley as well as the last one over on PC Gamer. And I don't know about you, but I hardly ever do it like that. I don't drag and drop files onto my taskbar. I don't. I might pin something there once I open an app, but yeah, not usually dragging and dropping anything there. That's just not my workflow, but I thought it was interesting that it was missing from Windows 11 and then put back. You would think that people would catch that right away, but maybe they have the same workflow that I do. So again, PC Gamer, Jacob Ridley is the author of this article. You can click the link here and over on ohmTown.com. And it will be on the YouTube channel. It will be in the podcast description. It will be everywhere that I post this, except here on Twitch, because the VOD will have it and you can click on it there. The next article is in Prime Glass. That's a photography channel that I am planning to launch. I'm looking for a host or co-host. It says, make your licensing photos more saleable with these simple tips. As we navigate an increasingly digital world, images remain one of the most important tools for today's marketers to connect with consumers. And wow, this actually grabbed way too much of this article. So I'm going to have to fix that. Sorry for the fast scroll. It's just not in my nature to capture an entire article. That's not what my aggregator does, and I apologize. I will fix that. It will not be on the site. So you click this link and you get taken over to 500 px or 500 pixels .com. The article is make your licensing photos more saleable with these simple tips. And it goes into detail. It just says published by Feature Shoot and doesn't seem to have an author. But one of the things that comes up in marketing meetings, and it really depends on kind of the air, you know, if you read the room and understand your customers and understand your clients and see if it makes a difference. But a lot of people want to see some semblance of themselves or their aspirational self in the marketing. So if you if you're trying to sell a car, for instance, you want to make the car be in a position that a large cohort of your customers want to also be in. It could be fantastical, but it grabs them, right? So, this picture here that I'm showing it's a dog that's jumping up on a woman holding her phone. She's smiling and happy. It's somewhat high energy, but it's a flat brown background. It's got great color, but do you identify with it, right? Well, there are photo websites, 500 pics, where you can license. Wow, this is an adorable picture. Anyway, I'm not going to go through them all, but you can license photos. And if you go to this website and go through the article, you will be able to get some more resources so that you can license your photos. One of the biggest problems with the internet is once it's on the internet, unless you hunt it down, your artwork disappears into the ether. People will just pick it up and take it wholesale and not give you any credit, not even mention you in any way, shape, or form. There was an artist who denied a picture to an artist gallery, and they took it anyways, modified it slightly, used it as their flyer, and didn't give them credit or anything. And it took the internet, the entire internet army, to pivot that back in favor of the artist. And you know what? I've forgotten what actually happened with that at the end of the day. I know that there was outrage, but I don't know if there was a real solution to it. So if you find that solution, let me know. Throw it in chat. The next article is in Stock Marketeer's channel. And basically it's a show that talks about the stock market in a more holistic way, and not just like a day trading thing. This stock is up, this stock is down, but why are stocks the way they are? And this one was interesting because of one of the domains that I'm in, which is technology. Cisco Systems shares rise on sales earnings that beat expectations. So Cisco Systems Incorporated stock rose 3.5% in extended trading Wednesday after the computer networking company reported fiscal second quarter results slightly above Wall Street estimates and offered encouraging guidance despite lingering investor concern over supply chain issues. I'm going to click this link. Did I put it in? I didn't put it in my chat. So when you hear me go silent for a little bit, it's because I'm putting something in my chat on Twitch. So, and I don't edit it out of the YouTube post, and I don't edit it out of the podcast. So this article is over on MarketWatch, written by John Schwartz, or Swartz, pardon me. And it says, well, it actually stayed the same. Just so you know, there's some context here. MarketWatch tends to change their titles throughout the day, often enough that it draws my attention. So in this case, it seems largely the same. Anyway, the company also announced a $15 billion stock repurchase. Wow. But did not mention a rumored $20 billion acquisition of Splunk. And this is something that I mentioned in a previous episode, that they acquired Splunk. That is actually a pretty amazing buy, by the way. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. I guess as long as Splunk is still supported and it doesn't get integrated and isolated within Cisco in some way, I think it's fine. But I really don't know what's going to shake out from an acquisition of Splunk. But Splunk is huge, and a certification in Splunk will definitely open windows. So Cisco's reported net income of $2.97 billion or 71 cents a share, compared with net income of $2.5 billion or 60 cents a share. Let's see. Revenue improved 6% to $12.7 billion from $12 billion a year ago, which to me, I mean, that's rather flat. But during a pandemic and when supply chain issues exist, they've got the money to do a stock repurchase, which is going to prop the stock up quite a bit. Yeah, I think for me, because of the domain that I'm in, I don't see Cisco being able to sustain this, but that's my perception. I think that there are solutions that are available elsewhere, but we will see. We will see. Cisco stock is down 14% so far in 2022. And I don't really care to compare against entire indexes, but let's go on to the next. Oh, of course, I just did something. Sorry, 1 second. So this next article is in Stock Marketeers. And not every day is very either tech heavy or stock heavy or business or sociology heavy. It's usually a mishmash. It's just that there are some interesting things that I saw while I was going through the day's headlines. This is in the Stock Marketeers channel. Need to know. These 17 small cap stock ideas have momentum and valuation on their side, says Jeffries. So don't count out all small cap stocks. So small cap is small capitalization. So not the Apples of the world, right? Which offers up more than a dozen names that look cheap and have plenty of momentum behind them. So the idea is that they are going to increase in value. And they left the title alone for this one too. Critical information for the U.S. trading day. So they mentioned Russia, Ukraine. There's a lot of talk about this. Russia says that Ukraine is doing something. Russia says that the United States is hyping up because of other things. U.S. is saying that Russia is doing things. Apparently a tank blew up a school or something today. Russia says that they're backing away, or no, I should say Russia said that their troops are leaving the border, but in which direction really? Yeah. And when you're beyond arm's reach, you have to rely on evidence that's provided by third parties. And that's where you get into this, they said kind of thing. And, most people in the world just want to live their life. And there isn't anybody in Ukraine that is sitting there saying, let's go to war with Russia. And most of the people I can imagine in Russia aren't interested in going to war with Ukraine. There's always, everybody loses in a war, and that's because there are victims on both sides. And it's just a shame that this is what's happening. That said, I tend to be perceived as pretty naive in global politics because I can't see in the 21st century why we aren't leveraging technology to make it possible to live a superior life wherever you are. And that's just my hot take on it. That said, if you have the money and you are interested in investing, these are apparently some small cap stocks that may or may not be very expensive. And let's see, it says 17 names have moved into Q1 on momentum and still look cheap. You all might have different perceptions of what cheap is. So if you're a day trader, $200 would be considered a cheap stock, I'm sure, if you have the right amount of capital. But many small time investors aren't looking at stocks costing $222, $250. Yeah. So my advice to people is invest in dividend stock. Dividend earning stock is a long-term investment where you can just leave your money in there and reinvest the dividend, and it will grow and it will grow and it will grow. And as long as you leave it alone, you won't lose anything, as long as the company that you're investing in doesn't completely fall off the rails. And I won't get into this article too much, but go and check it out. It's an article that is over on MarketWatch, written by Barbara Kohlmeier, and I'll let you have at it. This next article is in the Order of the Grape channel. It's about wine, and it says the difference between Blue Moon, Shock Top, Hoegaarden explained. If you've ever been interested in what the differences are, they remain the top choices vying for summertime drinking needs. And well, let's see here. It is February, so it's summer somewhere, right? It really is summer somewhere. Anyway, if you click the link, vinepair.com has the article. It's written by Ashley Hughes, and they go into detail about what the differences are. Blue Moon's Belgian White, considered by some to be one of the most important American beers of all time, is instantly recognizable in bars due to the automatic inclusion of an orange slice in the glass. By the way, it's a very refreshing beer. Really depends on how hoppy you like your beers. But like, I like the Blue Moon's Belgian White. I'm not particular for Shock Top. They represent a category of beers inspired by traditional Belgian whites like Hoegaarden. But while all three beers share similar characteristics, there's plenty that sets them apart. And keep reading. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to go over to VinePair, read this article, and then come back and talk to me and tell me what I missed. I may not read all of this. I might skim it later. I don't know. My objective is to introduce you to a bunch of news that might have slipped by in the noise, but I find interesting, so I'll end up reading a little bit about it. This next article is in Smack Talk, which is an Apple discussion forum. It's going to be a channel. It just doesn't have a dedicated time slot yet. I'm still only doing this 1 hour show each day. Apple beats lawsuit over racially diverse emoji, which I didn't know that there was something going on about this. If it did pop up, it slipped my mind. A lawsuit alleging that Apple's ethnically diverse emoji characters infringe copyright has been dismissed by a federal judge. Well, that's interesting titling there. So this is an Apple Insider link. I'm going to go over there, and it's written by William Gallagher. A lawsuit alleging that Apple's ethnically diverse emoji characters infringe copyright has been dismissed by a federal judge. And it says, let's see, claim that the world's first diverse emoji brand was invented by the plaintiff, Cub Club Investment, first used in 2013. CCI held over 20 copyrights and at the time had 3 pending patent applications. Wow, that's impressive. I mean, if they're about emojis. So the case has now been dismissed, even assuming the allegations in the complaint are true. The idea is all that Apple copied. Oh, so if that's the claim, the judge, I guess their name is Cabria, said that even assuming the allegations in the complaint are true, the idea is all that Apple copied. So just so you know, yeah, and they say it right here in the article on Apple Insider, ideas can't be protected. An idea is an idea. So if I say an idea here on the channel, right, like I want to do ohmTown and you copy ohmTown wholesale, right? As long as you don't take my names, my art, my embodiment, you're fine. Go do all of the work that I've done and you can do it too. Possibly streaming to, nobody. I don't know right now. Is anybody in my chat? Feel free to say hello. That'd be great. Let me know you're there. Well, ideas can't be protected. The embodiment can. So you have to create something. Or take somebody else's work and it's transformative beyond the limits of copyright. And to do that is almost asking for a lawsuit. But in this case, it was just the idea. In so much as that's what the different emojis are. So it got cast out. I am not surprised. The next article is in the Order of the Grape, which is the wine channel. Wine 101, does price correspond to quality? It really depends. There is quantifiable quality and qualifiable quality. So you can test wine for a certain quantity of X, Y, and Z components, and you define what quality is. But taste testers, the people who drink the wine and like it, that's quality to them, whatever that might be. So I'm going to click this link here and it'll take us over to VinePair. And this article is written by apparently everybody at the VinePair staff, because that's what it says it's written by. And I guess they go into some discussion about it. And I'm not going to, it says, so essentially, does the price of a wine reflect the quality of the wine inside the bottle? The answer is yes and no. How about that for an answer? Let's see if I can find really quick something that's inside this. Again, I don't read all of this material prior to doing the show because I want to engage with you at the same time, the information. The first thing that has to be factored in is the price of the grapes. So if they're talking about that kind of stuff, the ingredients that go into it, the end quality of a wine and its input quality of the grapes and other materials and processing and whatnot doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get a quality wine on the other side of it. So to me, I would love for you to go over and read this article and then come back and talk to me and tell me what your perception is of this article, and what your perception is of the question, does price correspond to quality? But my take on it, even without reading more than maybe 25, 30 lines of this article, is that whatever you like is quality. And if you like something more, it's higher quality. But it's your quality, not somebody else's quantified level of quality. The amount of alcohol in it, the amount of sugars in it, a particular taste portrait. This next article is over in the Order of the Leaf channel, which talks about tea. What My Tea Says to Me, The Winds of Tea, it says. A tea poem and illustration by Jennifer R. Cook. I'm going to click this link. I thought that it was an interesting title, and they have a really neat piece of artwork on there. But it was written by Jennifer R. Cook, and it's just a little poem. So go over to Teaching and give them a look-see. They've got a bunch of information on teas, and I've always found them valuable just to stimulate my interest in tea. I have quite a broad spectrum of interests, so I'll let you read that poem and then you can come back and talk to me about it. In the Mobble group, a team of researchers, I have a channel called Mobble. It too is looking for a host. I can't do all of the shows all by myself. So I'm looking for a co-host or host. This article is study suggests attractive people have stronger immune systems. And I thought this was very interesting as a take on the human condition, that your attractiveness also emboldens your immune system. So the snippet that my aggregator grabbed says a team of researchers at Texas Christian University has found that people perceived as more attractive by others tend to have a stronger immune system. And in their study, published in Proceedings of the Royal Society B, the group asked volunteers to rate the level of attractiveness of people in pictures. So click this link. It'll take us over to phys.org. They have what looks like what amounts to a supply and demand graph, and or a pricing graph, or it's kind of funny. So they have there was a joke that was floating around the internet called the crazy hot matrix. And this is kind of how it kind of looks like. But at any rate, this is an article written by Bob Yurka over on phys.org. Not to demean this work a little bit, but I will have to read this study because I look at several things when I read a research paper, and one of them is the funding source. And who asked for the research to be done. But it's my cynicism about research and chasing the money. The researchers then asked 492 other male and female volunteers to rate the people of the opposite gender in the photographs on their attractiveness. And the researchers found that those judging the those judging the attractiveness of others based on nothing but a single photograph found those people with stronger immune systems to be more attractive, despite not knowing anything about their immune system. They were somehow able to see it in the faces they were looking at. Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to look into this. To find out if this might be the case, they first recruited 159 male and female volunteers and photographed each without any makeup and with a neutral facial expression. This is pretty fascinating. And I don't know what the takeaway is. So I'm gonna earmark this and come back to it because I'm actually very curious. Because this goes into not just like biology, but society as a whole, socioeconomic status. Those with money have the ability to obtain the foodstuffs and the protections that allow their immune system to be strong. When you don't have to worry about where your food is coming from or shelter, you can dedicate more resources to staying healthy. You can go and work out. There's a lot of genetic deference given to healthiness. It has to be deeper than that. It just has to be deeper than just looking at somebody and saying, oh, well, they're healthier. But I'm going to keep on going. Looks like I'm going to be running late today, but that's okay. We'll make it work. The next article is in Stock Marketeers. And this is something that I spoke about in the last episode, I believe. U.S. jobless claims jumped 23,000 to 3-week high of 248,000, but economists say no worries. New applicants for unemployment benefits jumped 23,000 to 248,000. But I have to tell you that it says last week to break a string of recent declines, but layoffs are expected to stay low as companies strive to fill near record number of job openings. And that's the crux. So I'm going to click this link and take you over there. It's written by Jeffrey Bartash over on MarketWatch. And people are hiring, but they're being hired at less than ideal wages. And when you have 7.5% inflation and zero cost of living increases or declines because, well, you need a job, and while there's a whole lot of people that are looking for jobs, you end up with, a subreddit called anti-work. Now, they got some bad press recently, but the idea of workers demanding respect and not necessarily just straight pay is not unheard of. So I just don't know what to make of this. People have given up looking for work because they're not getting what they think they deserve, or the pay is horrible. And meanwhile, you have CEOs that are making 20 million, 60 million, $100 million a year in compensation for managing to survive attrition to the point where they can command that. Good decision making, mind you, right? Not every CEO is undeserving of their pay, but it seems like it just screams that, I don't know, that the workers are just going to be the workers. And because they don't get the ability to be compensated at a livable wage, they can't better themselves through education and training and enhancing themselves to continue to compete. Meanwhile, you'll have a bunch of people saying, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah, that's not how life works. And I beg to differ anybody that says otherwise. We can have a conversation. That would be great if you want to talk about it. This next article is over in Mobble. That's the channel it will be discussed in once a show starts up. Nano-sized plastics may enter and permeate cell membranes. The occurrence of microplastics in nature has been studied extensively. Yes, they are everywhere. They're in fish. You pull a fish out of the ocean and it's probably going to have microplastics somewhere in it. And it's because it flakes off. It decomposes in the water in little tiny little slivers. However, little is known about the health effects of microplastics, and understanding of their transport into the human body is also lacking. So some researchers have dug around. It says University of Eastern Finland is the source of this. And it says, this is why it is important to investigate the transport mechanism of microplastics into the human body. However, not enough research methods have been developed. I'm sure at some point we will find out that we have so many microplastics and you won't be able to see them easily. You'll have to get a microscope and look at a sample, right? You'll have to take a tissue sample and look at it under a microscope or a scanning electron microscope, perhaps, but it's there. It's not innocuous. It's not something that, oh, well, it's okay. It's really small. A microparticle of plastic floating around in your body could lodge somewhere and end you. And that's hyperbolic, but if it's in your system, it is a foreign object in your system. And if it's sitting there making its way into a cell, what is that all about? It's basically just penetrating the cell, and then the cell is sealing up behind it, I suppose. So it's interesting that this is actually taking place. So go over to phys.org and read this article, and then come on back to me the next day. Come and talk to me tomorrow about it. This next article is in the Order of the Bean, which talks about coffee. And this says, caffeinated donuts bring about the breakfast singularity. The Boost Jumbo Donuts by Hostess contain 50 to 70 milligrams of coffee. I think that's an entire cup of coffee. And don't get me wrong, I really appreciate this. I actually have a product that I want to bring to market that is caffeinated. But there's a lot of stuff involved in doing that. Zach Cadwallader is the author of this article over at sprudge.com. Jumbo donuts called Boost Caffeinated Donut. It's only one per bag, but you can get a chocolate mocha or a caramel macchiato, a caramel macchiato, a coffee donut. And it has I think that is an entire cup of coffee. Let's see. Nonetheless, Hostess, makers of non-oxymoronic treats like Twinkie, Ding Dong, Ho Ho, and Snowball, have decided that any time spent drinking coffee is time not spent eating sugar snacks, and have set out to remedy that with their latest release. Each 2.5 ounce donut will contain 50 to 70 milligrams of caffeine, slightly less than a cup of coffee. Yeah, I think it's 80 is the milligram. 75 or 80, I think, is the coffee. With the caffeine in the 3X donut will come from coffee bean extract. Well, at least it's concentrated. But I bet you it's a very flavorful, a moist donut. It has 2 T's, by the way. Since you might be listening to this via the podcast later, it's spelled DONETTES. So it is a donut, not a donut. Not a donut. It's a donut. Anyway, retailing for $2.49 an individual package. There you go. Thank you, Zach, for putting this article together. Please click the link and go over to the Sprudge and check it out. I think that you will, you'll get a kick out of the site. Under Smack Talk, there's an article about password cracking. Password cracking tool can slowly hack T2 Mac passwords. So there's a chip in the Mac called the T2 chip. It allows it. There's a vulnerability apparently. But if anybody has that amount of time to break in, then your device has probably been stolen and you should be wiping it remotely. So I'm going to click this link. Let me paste it into the chat first. Might be slacking here a little bit. So password cracking tool can slowly hack T2 Mac passwords. Mike Peterson is the author of this article over at appleinsider.com. Go over and check it out. You can follow the link from ohmTown. A company that makes a password cracking tool says that a new vulnerability found in the Mac T2 chip allows it to brute force passwords and decrypt a device. I'll have to look into this one as well. It's a company called Passware. Oh, pardon me. Sorry for the fast scroll. I don't do that intentionally. I have a modified trackball and sometimes it auto scrolls when I do it the wrong way. That's intentional though. Password T2 bypassing tool is available both to government and customers and companies, that can provide a valid justification for its usage, and it costs $2,000. And it's offering a dictionary of about 550,000 commonly used words alongside a longer dictionary of about 10 billion. Well, it's a dictionary attack. So whoever is in possession of the Mac probably could do this all on their own, unless the timeout. Maybe that's what they're doing. They're bypassing a timeout, a delay in the password attempts. Maybe I can take another look at that. So this next article is the iPhone 14 Pro is said to have 8 gigabytes of RAM. And it's kind of interesting because Apple doesn't sit there and shout from the hilltops how much RAM is inside their computer. Their devices, their phone in particular, and iPads. It's normally not the RAM, it's the storage that gets announced, but somebody will do an x-ray and look at it and kind of prove that that's what it is, how much is inside it. So click on the link, you go over to appleinsider.com. William Gallagher is the author of this. And it says a leaker says the iPhone 14 Pro range will include 8 gigabytes of RAM. Pretty neat. You know, it's basically new every 2. And if there's the ebb and flow. There's another term for it. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically a big update and a little update. And, you know, if you are bouncing from a 13 to a 14 and you are really app heavy, then you may want to upgrade to the 14 Pro and get 8 gigs of RAM. I think most people don't really need it, but it's safer to get the bigger because then it retains its long-term value longer. And I'm basically promoting more people buy the bigger one, and that's going to keep me from getting it because I won't be able to get there in time and pick up a new one. Well, anyway, it says it's also been claimed that the iPhone 14 range will get a 48 megapixel camera sensor and possibly switch to an eSIM only system. Well, megapixels have long been argued as kind of a red herring in terms of quality and a deciding factor within hardware. Cameras in particular. And basically for me, the more megapixels you have, the more you have the ability to manipulate in post. And I think that's what's really important. This is going to be the second to last article. So if you are on your way out, then thank you for coming. But I've got one more thing after this. And that's because there's a Kickstarter about to end in about 2 days, and maybe you might want to take part in this. Hopefully somebody sees it. This is in the Mobile channel, a new strategy for counteracting the impact of negative online brand reviews. Researchers from Boston College and University of British Columbia published a new paper in the Journal of Marketing that examines when and why negative reviews can be beneficial to companies. You click this link. Let me post it in chat. Pardon me. And this article is by Marilyn Stone, American Marketing Association. The study is titled The Upside of Negative, Social Distance and Negative Reviews of Identity Relevant Brands, and is authored by Naila Ordabayeva and Lisa Kavanaugh and Darren Dahl. Pardon me if I've ruined any names. Managing online reviews is critical for business. Most consumers consult online reviews before making purchase decisions, and seeing just a few negative reviews can damage sales and other business outcomes. Yes, that's true. Managers understandably worry about negative reviews and attempt to downplay or minimize them to avoid negative effects. Yes, that's true. Let's see. When consumers identify with a brand, they're more likely to scrutinize negative reviews, seeking to protect the brand and by extension themselves. True. This is it's anecdotal for me, because of what I do is strategic management, but this is arguably a research study that they've collected the data and analyzed it in some way. But it's just reaffirming what people in business already know. But really, the reaction to a negative review is really what's important. If somebody posts a negative review, I would encourage, in a not overt way, like you're trying to bribe somebody to make a positive review, but promote in your shop, in your store, hey, go to this site and post a positive review if you have a positive experience with us. Not that I want you to go and do this because I'm asking you, but if you had a positive review, go and leave a good review for us. That's kind of how it works. But if you respond with a vitriolic, angry rant about the performance of the person that left the bad review, you might end up with further negative responses. That said, if you are very charismatic with your writing and you rip someone a new one, it might go viral and people will respect you, but you had better be dead on accurate with your claims. There have been times where somebody has said something about a restaurant, and the person who was complaining was so well known that the restaurant owner or manager who responded knew about the person, everything that happened that night, had the receipts ready, had people that were willing to add on to the context. And that kind of a response is really hit or miss. So it's almost as if you should just go, all right, just ignore that negative, overwhelm it with positive. In fact, you should probably lean into being better with customer service and value added services on top of that, simply to stamp out the negative impressions. But it says, our findings emphasize the importance of cultivating customers' brand relationships as a strategy for protecting identity relevant brands and benefiting from negative reviews. Thus, it is critical for managers to understand their brand's relevance. So this article you might be interested in reading if you are in business or in marketing, not necessarily business, but marketing as well. And you have ever run across negative reviews and wondered what the possible outcome is. That said, that's kind of the end of the regular show, but I want to draw attention to a Kickstarter that I'm a part of, but not really a part of, right? Like I've pledged to this Kickstarter, and they're coming up on the last 2 days. They're actually at 41 hours, and it's a Western inspired survival based building game called Above Snakes. Now they won't be, by the time this gets posted to YouTube and to the podcast, they won't be here on Kickstarter anymore. It'll be done and people will probably be playing the alpha. But if you're in my chat, go over to Kickstarter. I'll throw this in my chat right now. Maybe somebody will watch this in the VOD and they'll go over to the Kickstarter and they will pledge as well. And it's just it's a rather simple story that you can wrap your head around really easily, but it has wonderful graphics. They start the pre-alpha if you pledge a certain level here in March, almost immediately after the Kickstarter completes. So they're pretty much ready. I've watched them play it a couple of times. But the objective is you place isometric squares on a map and build your base. You actually build a house and stuff around it. And you grow through the story to figure out what happened, because there are zombies and there are critters and there are other people, but it's not an MMO or anything like that. It's not even multiplayer. It's a single player game. I love the graphics, and that's what kind of hooked me into this and the story. And it looks rather simple. But I think that this game has legs. I think it has the ability to go viral, and even possibly be competitive depending on the next steps. And by competitive, I mean, this game could be like an MMO where people add on to the map and compete for resources and try to eliminate each other. It's kind of like an inverse, what do you call it? Oh man. Yeah, my words just left my brain. Instead of a base or a map slowly contracting like a battle royale, this is a base that actually grows bigger and you get more and more resources. And Tobias is the author, Tobias Schnackenberg, very engaged in the Discord, very engaged in the Kickstarter. Got 2 days, go over there and pledge and be a part of it. And when you get to a certain level, you get a shirt. I'll be wearing the shirt when I'm streaming. I'll be playing this game as soon as the Kickstarter is released to me, and I get my key. As soon as he gives me my key, I will be streaming this. So probably after the daily news show. Okay. And with that in mind, I'm going to take you back to the front page of ohmTown and show you that, like pretty much every moment of the day, if you click on the name ohmTown in the top left corner, it will refresh and give you a whole new set of news headlines. And there it goes. Ta-da. And I want to thank you very much for coming. I will see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm running a little later, but that's fine. And I hope to see you in chat. Thank you very much for stopping by. Bye-bye.